In the biting cold of a Massachusetts winter, the body of Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found lifeless in the snow outside of 34 Fairview Road in Canton. His injuries were brutal: head trauma, abrasions, and evidence of a prolonged exposure to the elements. The woman who claimed to love him, Karen Reed, quickly became the center of a swirling storm of suspicion. Prosecutors painted a chilling narrative that she, in a drunken fury, struck him with her SUV and left him to die. The first trial ignited a firestorm. Reed supporters protested outside the courthouse, waving signs and chanting, insisting she was framed. Inside, her defense raised pointed questions about missing data, biased investigators, and the blue wall of silence. The jury could not agree. A mistrial. Now, as the second trial is underway, the stakes are even higher. The courtroom is once again a battleground as the search for the truth about what really happened that freezing January night continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you aboard. Welcome to Closing Arguments and our continuing coverage of the retrial of the century, the case against Karen Reed for the murder of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. So Karen Reed's first trial in 2024, that was, and you saw it here on Court TV, an epic battle. And there were a lot of moments that were unexpected and a lot of developments during the course of the trial that were unexpected, including some just before the trial. Things like the federal investigation, the results that were given to both sides, those results helping the defense, becoming part of the defense case. All of that information about Trooper Proctor's cell phone, that was given to the prosecution and defense just before the start of the trial. That was not expected. You had a moment where the prosecutor, Adam Lally, put a video in front of the jury, but inverted it. So the left side of the car was the right side was the left side. Extremely misleading. Like, did it in court to the jury and didn't acknowledge it. That was another big, unexpected moment. And when I think about Karen Reed's first trial, everything that sort of developed and happened all seemed to help the defense. There was a level of momentum and mojo that was working. And then we heard from the jury. And the official word from the jury, according to the jury sheet, was that they could not come to a unanimous verdict on any of the counts, and it was a mistrial. Then we heard from the jurors afterwards, and they spoke. And what they said was, listen, we didn't believe this was a murder case. Count 1 was off the table. Count 3 was off the table. We were debating count 2. We were debating whether or not her SUV actually struck John O'Keefe or not, and if it did, it was accidentally. That's what we heard from the jury. So with all of that in mind, both sides pay attention to that. And in 2025, it's time to retool and refine your case. You take that information from that first jury, the bits and pieces that you learn, and then you try to help your case. One of the other big things that one of the jurors said, who came on my show, said, I asked him, what do you think happened? He said, I don't know what happened. That's reasonable doubt, that's not guilty, but that's a problem for prosecutors. So part of them retooling their case is getting better experts who can explain through their expertise what happened to John O'Keefe from their perspective. They're retooling. So as all this is happening, the defense is fine-tuning their case as well, and a lot of the surprises that happened in the first trial aren't going to happen in the second trial. Other things may develop, but some of those things that happened in the first trial that really helped the defense, it's already, you know, the cat's out of the bag already on those. So both sides are retooling and prepared for all of that this time around. So what is different now? So what is different from the first trial, which we watched, to what we've seen so far in this second trial? And that's what we're going to take a look at this hour on this program, is take a look at the big differences between the 2024 trial and what has happened so far in the 2025 retrial of Karen Read. And we'll break down not only what's different, but what it means and who gets the advantage. Let's begin here. This is something that's different that may not impact what's happening in the courtroom, but it's what's happening outside the courtroom. Take a look here at Karen Read arriving for day one of the trial back in 2024. I was there.
Free Karen Read! Free Karen Read! Free Karen Read! We love you, free Karen Read! Good luck. Free Karen Read! We got you, Karen. How are you feeling today? Are you feeling confident? Oh, we love you, Karen. Will you be giving the opening statement? I will, yeah. Excellent. We look forward to hearing it. How are you guys feeling the first day? Great. Go get him. Beautiful day for the trial. I can't wait. Go get him, Karen.
I mean, it was a big production. I mean, all the supporters who had to be one block over, and they were right in the area where Karen Read and her defense team and supporters and family would arrive every morning, and they would be greeted by her supporters and then sort of cheered on into the courtroom. Take a look. Here's some more of the arrivals from 2024, and you could just see the energy and feel the energy at the courthouse. You see the folks in the background who had greeted Karen Read and the smiles on their faces. Again, every day they were over there meeting her and her team as they arrived, and the numbers grew larger and larger and larger throughout the course of the trial. That was 2024. And that was one of the things that made this case so different than any case I've ever seen. I want you to take a look at yesterday, Karen Read arriving at the courthouse. That's her SUV right there, pulling around to the side, parking on the side, and a couple folks walking in. What a contrast. What an absolute contrast. The supporters have been pushed away further from the courtroom. They're not driving and parking where the supporters are. They're just parking around the corner and then wheeling their stuff in like every attorney and every litigant in every case across the country. No different. Extremely normal. All right. Let's break some of this down. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, former police lieutenant, trial attorney, Rick King. Also with us, Chief Public Defender for Oakland County, Michigan. She represented the Oxford High School shooter. Paulette Lofton is here. And retired criminal defense attorney, Kirk Nurmi, who knows all about those crowds at the courthouse. They didn't love Kirk at the time, but they love him now. They love...
Let's hope so, Vinnie. Okay. Let's hope so.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we have a slight problem connecting with Rick King. You probably noticed it in the intro, so we'll connect to him, but we have Paulette and Kirk with us. Okay, let me talk to you, Paulette. The difference, what does it do? Oh, let me start with Kirk on this one, okay? I'm going to start with Kirk. What do you think it does to the defense team not arriving every day with the supporters, the fans, dare I say, of the defense attorney and the defendant, cheering them on into the courtroom every day, and you're just kind of pulling up, parking, and walking in?
Look, I think it feels more normal. It feels better. I mean, my experience was a bit different. We didn't have people, you know, in pink shirts and support. But at the same time, you know, that normalcy, the time to focus, you're not distracted. You're focused on what's happening in the courtroom, because that's where your focus should be. It shouldn't be a concern about supporters, what they're doing, what they might be chanting, et cetera. It's only about those people in the jury box. That's where their focus needs to be. And I think this simpler, more normal passageway and exiting the courtroom kind of lends credence to that idea that they can focus in the courtroom.
Now, Paulette, the reason the supporters aren't allowed to be close is because the court pushed them away. Do you think it impacts what's happening inside the courtroom with the 12 people whose opinions actually matter in all this, the jury, the fact that the outside scene is a little different?
I don't think it's really going to affect the jury. I think the buffer zone is probably a good idea. It looks like you're watching a Hollywood scene unfold here during the first trial. And you really have...
Well, let me ask you, Paulette, I just want to be clear here. Does the difference from 24 to 25 make a difference in the courtroom? Because apparently, I believe the judge believes so. Otherwise, she wouldn't have pushed the supporters further away.
I think the jurors could feel pressure by all of the people standing outside, chanting, wearing shirts, and having signs. I definitely think the jury could feel some sort of pressure. I don't think the buffer zone is a bad idea. I think it makes it like a normal case. The jurors are there to follow the law. It doesn't matter if Miss Reed has been on every news station for the last 2 to 3 years of her life. They're there to follow the law that is followed in every single case, whether it makes the news or not.
Okay, let's do this. Rick King, you're with us?
I'm back.
All right, I just want to make sure you're with us. All right, so let's talk about a big difference inside the courtroom, because this may be the biggest difference. I'm not sure. I'm going to ask you guys that. 2024, the prosecutor, Adam Lally versus Hank Brennan, the prosecutor in 2025. Let's take a look.
His examination of the vehicle, his examination of the scene, his examination of specifically some Toyota texture, because Lexus is essentially owned by Toyota or vice versa. So there is some data that he's able to recover from that and back the vehicle up based on its known locations and travel, and key cycles, and essentially he'll opine that around 12:45 in the morning, when the vehicle was in front of the residence on Fairview, that for some perceptible period of time, that vehicle travels over 60 feet in reverse at over approximately 24.2 miles per hour.
Facts and the science and data will tell you that despite the fact the argument was over, he then put the Lexus into reverse, put her foot on the gas pedal, and began to press, not 25%, not 50%, up to 75% acceleration. There was a light dusting of snow. The Lexus tires spun backwards. She went backwards at least 70 feet. She clipped John O'Keefe. He fell backwards, hit his head, broke his skull, and there he lay.
All right, Rick, what I'm seeing from the 2025 prosecutor, Hank Brennan versus Adam Lally, different style, completely different style. Hank Brennan is a storyteller. I mean, yes. He's telling a story, and then the way he questions people, the questions are shorter, sharper. What are your thoughts? How much of a difference is it? How much of a difference does it make?
So I think for me, I think those differences are huge. One of the things that the Lally, the former prosecutor, did when he was giving, at least in that particular clip and throughout his involvement in the case, he spoke like a brand new Rick King on the stand as a police officer, speaking in policeese and that kind of the perpetrator moved this distance. And the second, Mr. Lally, Mr. Brennan, he spoke in storytelling. He gave you a visual, like when he described the wheels spinning, and he used some hand gestures. It made you think, and it made you put you there. It gave you a reality rather than that policese or lawyerese talk that the first prosecutor used. And that's a difference. When you can get the jury to visualize or imagine or put themselves where it is, it creates a reality for that jury.
You know, Paulette, Hank Brennan was a prosecutor for some time, but he spent a lot of time also now as a defense attorney, represented Whitey Bulger. He's been on the other side. Adam Lally, I mean, he's one of those career prosecutors, which we need. We absolutely need career prosecutors in this country and in DA's offices around the nation. What are your thoughts about the difference and the impact of the difference?
I think there's a huge difference. Brennan, as you said, great storyteller, using less words, but making a larger impact. As defense attorneys, that's what we do. We tell a story. We are not robots with the elements of the crimes and the facts and using the police words and the legalese. We tell a story to connect with the jury. And I definitely think he is using those skills that he has used so many times being a defense attorney, and it's working here.
All right, Kirk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I echo Paulette. Look, defense attorneys are storytellers. They're not there to digest the facts, go up to a witness, say, what happened next, what happened next, what happened next, which is a typical prosecutor protocol, if you will. Defense attorneys have to try to tell a story, tell a narrative that illustrates their client's innocent. What Mr. Brennan is doing is simply flipping that around and working it to try to tell a story of guilt. He's a real advocate for guilt. You might say that the career prosecutors are there to, do justice, to present a case and let the jury decide, if you will. Whereas a defense attorney is really an advocate more. And it sounds like a subtle difference, but I think it has big impact in the courtroom. And I think that's what we're seeing with Hank Brennan during the first several days of this trial. And
it's rare, like in our profession. I'm a lawyer too. I'm retired, but I'm a lawyer. I'm like Kirk. I'm retired. Usually prosecutors become defense attorneys and that's it. And then, they go to the dark side, they never come back. This one, I'm sorry, Paulette. This one came back and is now prosecuting. So it's rare that you have someone with those defense attorney skills prosecuting. I think it's a huge difference. Now, I don't want to leave the defense out of this because there's a huge difference with the defense. Take a look here. 2024, Alan Jackson, clean shaven. 2025, Alan Jackson shows up and he's got some level of facial hair here. Rick, what are your thoughts? What's the impact? It's not a full beard. What would you call that? And do you think the jury is enjoying it?
That's kind of a summer beard. Some over here, some over there. It's there, but I think it's negligible. Nobody cares about that. They want to.
Do you ever shave, Rick? Have you ever shaven for a jury?
Absolutely.
You have?
Absolutely.
And where have you had more success?
I think actually clean shaven. I think I did a little better. But so I used to, if you remember, Vinny, I used to have more of a, now I rock the goatee, but I had the full beard.
We're liking it. Rick always looks good, but it's all about the jury. It's all about the jury. All right, great news. Rick, Paulette, Kirk staying with us this hour as we continue to go take a look at the big differences between the 2024 trial and what we've seen so far in 2025. We'll do that, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, who is telling the truth and who is lying in the Karen Read retrial. We bring in body language experts to break down the most important testimony in the case.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
How do you explain it? Two teenagers, they go from zero to the worst crime anyone can imagine.
I'm done with this interview. Let me out.
Interview with a Killer. New episode, Sunday at 8 on Court TV.
While you're in the view, you're not to take any notes, you're not to take any pictures, you're not to conduct any independent investigation at all during the view or any time during the trial. You're not to return to this scene or ask anybody to go back there for you. Today's your chance. You'll see photographs during the course of the trial, I bet, but today's your chance to really look at everything. So the best way to summarize a view is that your job is to simply stop and look.
Judge Cannoni instructing the jury before they went out on the jury view, and we're looking at the differences between the 2024 trial and the 2025 trial. Let's take a look now at the jury views. We begin with 2025. And you can see the car is parked, slightly different place at the view. It's very close there, you can see, to the pole. This is the area that the prosecution says John O'Keefe was found and where the car struck John O'Keefe. Now, obviously, we can't shoot the jurors here, but you can see the way things were set up in 2025. Now, let's take a look, if we can. There again is more from 2025. At 20, is this 2024? Okay, now we're taking a look at 2024. Again, the SUV is there. And now we're back to 2025. So let's just bring in the guests. Let's bring in Rick King, Paulette Lofton, Kirk Nurmi. Our think tank is back with us. So I want to point out something. I don't know how clear it was from there, but it'll be very clear here. The placement of the Lexus at the actual jury view. 2024, you take a look at where it is, and it is very much... Do we have the still here? Do we have the still? There we go. That's what we wanted. So in 2024, you can see it's placed sort of not quite in the middle of the house. 2025, the angle that we're taking the picture is different, but if you look on the left side of the 2025 picture, and as you saw in the video, it's very close to the flagpole. 2024, not near the flagpole, further away from the flagpole. How much of a difference does this make, Kirk?
Well, you know, it's hard to say because right now this jury view is kind of out of context, right? Because, and we've seen this in the Commonwealth's presentation, we're kind of skirting around the important issue that the defense raised, I think, aptly in their opening argument. There's no collision. Well, we don't have any evidence of a collision from which the jury can kind of go back and assess to kind of picture what happened, right? They don't have any expert testimony. So what they're going to do now when they get to that expert testimony is go back and engage in some conjecture about what happened. I think we kind of heard that from the first jury. They were fighting over what happened or couldn't agree on what actually happened. And I don't know that the jury view at this time, even with the different placements of the cars, really alters that reality because they're going to need to hear from experts on what happened, cause, and manner of death, and they haven't heard that yet.
Rick, do you think there's any difference for the jury being at the scene and seeing the car where prosecutors say it struck John O'Keefe versus seeing it in a different location in 2024?
Yeah, I don't know that, and I agree with Kurt in the sense that I don't know that in this context or contextually how they're looking at it right now, it's going to play a significant part. They're going to need to put that more in context with it. Well,
they do know where the body was found. I mean, they do know where John O'Keefe was found. They were told where John O'Keefe was found near the flagpole and the fire hydrant, which is where the SUV is. Let's do this. There was something else that was way different in 2025. A rock appeared in front of the house. You see that rock? Now we zoom in on it. There was a rock that said Albert on it, or Alberts on it, that for some reason showed up the day of the jury view and then was gone the next day. Paulette Lofton, will that have any sort of an impact? The fact that there's a rock near where prosecutors say John O'Keefe was struck and his body was found?
I don't think so. I think the scene visit is just a little too early because, as was just stated, I don't think they have all the facts. They haven't heard from experts yet. They're not sure exactly how the prosecution, other than in their opening, is alleging that this individual was killed. So I don't know if they knew what to look for this early on. I don't think the placement of the car or the weird rock that appeared, even though the Alberts don't live there anymore, I don't think that is going to affect the jury's outcome.
All right, I've got something else to show you. The digital evidence. The evidence from John O'Keefe's phone. At the first trial, we heard a lot about location. We are hearing that in the second one as well. But there's one thing that we heard this year that we did not hear last year. Let's take a look.
By 37 minutes after midnight, we now know the device is already at Fairview. It's been at Fairview for approximately 12 minutes. And the temperature has continued to drop. It's now 72 Fahrenheit. 7 minutes after 1, it's dropped to 55 Fahrenheit. At 1:36, it's dropped to 50. And then we have a large gap in the data. With the next record being made at 6 minutes after 6 a.m. when the temperature is 43 Fahrenheit.
And then you're now at 6:14 and it's 37 degrees?
Yeah, you're correct. This is the coldest temperature recorded.
Okay, Rick, what are your thoughts here? Because we didn't have any of this first time around. John O'Keefe's cell phone the battery has some sort of sensor that demonstrates the temperature. The temperature of his cell phone from the moment he steps out of Karen Reed's vehicle, based upon the timeline put together here, continues to drop. The defense says he went into the house. Prosecutors say he never went in the house. How much of an impact is the temperature of the battery of John O'Keefe's cell phone that the jury now has? How much of an impact does that have?
So when I looked at this, for me, it lost its impact when you had that big gap in time, because now I don't understand the evidence when it is reading a temperature for a certain period of time, and then you have like a 6-hour gap where it's not telling you anything. So because of the gap, it kind of lost me. I wouldn't give it much credit.
Okay, I'll review again. It goes from 72 to 55 down to 50 degrees. And the first two readings are within the first hour of Karen Reed leaving 34 Fairview, right? Till 1:36. So within an hour, it drops. Paulette Lofton, will this have an impact on the jury? This is a piece of evidence that didn't exist first time round. Like, why is the temperature of his cell phone going down if he went inside the house?
I think it's going to make a difference. This is concrete evidence. This isn't an attorney arguing their point of view. This is concrete evidence showing that you can tell the phone was in his pocket. It was very warm, almost close to his body temperature. And then as he was hit and the phone was dislodged and was found under him, the temperature continued to go down and down and down. So when the defense was arguing that he went inside for a period of time and something must have happened inside, I think they're going to have a problem making that argument because, again, we have concrete evidence showing that is not what happened.
Kirk?
Yeah, I don't know that I would disagree with Paulette and agree with Rick because, remember what this expert said. I mean, he was really, in many ways, just as good an expert for the defense as he was for the Commonwealth because he said he could have gone in the house. He looked at the location data. He could have gone in the house. How long did he have to be in that house if the defense's conspiracy theory is correct? He didn't have to be in there long. And what Rick pointed out, those temperature extension, the amount of time, it leaves a wide gap. It's not precise enough, that in and of itself, to me, to move the needle. And likely you're going to have a defense expert come in and explain some of those things. So I think it's going to lose its effect further. And we see really, we talk about the difference of the case, Vinnie, but the Commonwealth, like they were the first time, is really still on the defense as related to Miss Reed's theory of the case.
All right. Think Tank staying with us when we come back as we continue our comparison between the 25 and 2024 trial. Here's a witness who didn't testify first time. We take a look at John O'Keefe's family members on the stand.
Did you have any siblings?
2, yes. My sister Kristen. And brother John.
Your sister passed away in 2013, is that correct?
Correct.
And what did your sister Kristen pass away from?
She had an aggressive brain tumor, which is called glioblastoma.
And about how much time was it between the time that she sort of received the diagnosis to her passing?
5.5 months.
And you mentioned that you had a brother-in-law, Kristen's husband, is that correct?
Correct, Stephen Furbush, yes.
And when was it that he passed in relation to?
2 months later, which was January 12th, 2014.
And they, and by they I mean Kristen and Stephen Furbush, they had two children, is that correct?
Yes, 2 children. My brother stepped in, moved into the house in Canton and raised them for 8 years.
That was the first witness in the 2024 trial, Paul O'Keefe, John O'Keefe's brother. And he told the story of the O'Keefes, and he told the story of his brother, John O'Keefe. It was a powerful open, but this year, Hank Brennan went in a different direction. He didn't call Paul O'Keefe as the first witness, and he didn't put Paul O'Keefe on the stand to tell the story of the O'Keefe family. Instead, he called a witness who was not called in the first trial, John O'Keefe's mother, Peggy. Let's take a look.
I want to go back to the morning of January 29th, 2022. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Were you home?
I was home in Braintree.
In Braintree?
Mm-hmm.
Who were you with?
My husband.
Did you receive a phone call?
Yes, from Carrie Roberts. It was about 6:15, between 6:15 and 6:30 in the morning. She said John was found in a snowbank, and I didn't understand, which I said, what do you mean found in a snowbank? She said, they found him in the snow. They don't know what happened. She says he's brought up to the Good Samaritan Hospital. So she says, I'm gonna come get you and Papa, because I don't want you driving. And I says, we can drive there. We both have four-wheel drives. And she says, no, I'm coming. So she came to get us. And it took a while to get there because the snow was bad. When we get up there, they told us to sit in this room, and they would bring us down shortly. So finally they said, okay, you can go down. So we started walking down the corridor, and as I'm walking down, I hear Karen Reed yell, Peg, is he dead? Is he dead, Peg? Peg, is he dead? And I just kept walking, and then I asked, I don't know who it was, a nurse or a worker at the hospital, and I said, what is she doing here? And she says, oh, she's being psych evaluated. So then they brought us down to the room where my son was. He's bruised up, his eyes were closed. It's just not a good scene.
Okay.
Okay, Paulette, how big of a difference? How big of an impact? 2024 Paul O'Keefe versus 2025 Peggy O'Keefe.
I thought Paul O'Keefe did very, very well. So I'm not sure why the change was made, but I think his mother did just as good of a job. You know, we've discussed this on the show previously. The defendant can testify and humanize themselves. They can call witnesses that humanize the defendant, but very often the victim never gets that. So in homicide trials especially, it's done quite common by the prosecution to humanize the victim and give the jury kind of a background of that person, and expose them to the family that obviously suffered a huge loss. So I think Mom did well, but I don't know if it's going to have a different impact than his brother did, because I thought his brother did very well.
Kirk, what do you think? Is there a difference? Is there a difference in the impact of putting John O'Keefe's mom on the stand instead of Paul O'Keefe to introduce this jury to the victim?
I think that can always be more powerful to see the mother's pain in many ways. But, you know, we have to keep in one of the things I would question about this, and Paulette kind of alluded to it, is this idea that this is, at this point in the case, this emotional presentation, while it will humanize the victim, is going to get wiped out, but we know what's coming, right? We know that Trooper Proctor, Michael Proctor now, is going to come on the stand, and the jury's going to forget a lot of this. And likewise, if I'm the defense attorney in this case, I don't say just to say that Mr. Proctor engaged in a cover-up. Mr. Proctor lied to this woman. Mr. Proctor is part of the reason we don't know what happened to John O'Keefe, because of his investigation. Her pain is not because of Karen Reed, it's because of the Commonwealth and people like Michael Proctor, and that would be very powerful.
You know, Rick, seeing Peggy O'Keefe, because she didn't testify in the first trial at all, did not take the stand. She's in that jury, in that courtroom each and every day. This is a small courtroom. This is not a big one. They have a huge one there, but they're not using it. They're using this tiny courtroom, And she is right there. Karen Reed is right in front of her, but you look at her face, this view we're looking at, that's basically the jury's view of Peggy O'Keefe. What are your thoughts here?
So I thought that her presence and her testimony, and I agree, John's testimony was equally as endearing to the court and humanizing John in this case. However, I like the storytelling aspect of her telling the story of being at the hospital and hearing Karen scream out, "Peg, is he dead? Is he dead?" That cohesiveness of the story I like together. Now, I also agree with Kurt in the sense that I think that gets wiped out by everything that happens, and it also gives the defense an excellent analysis by Kurt in that it gives the defense to say, hey, this woman was hurt by the prosecutor. She was hurt by the police that lied, and that becomes very powerful, and I think wipes that out.
Now, in the first trial, Karen Reed did not testify. I don't expect her to testify in the retrial. She might, but I don't expect it. But this jury in 2025 is hearing Karen Reed tell parts of her story because the prosecutor is playing selected clips from interviews that she did with the media. Let's take a look.
I mean, I didn't think I hit him, but could I have clipped him? Could I have tagged him in the knee and incapacitated him? He didn't look mortally wounded as far as I could see, but could I have done something that knocked him out and in drunkenness and in the cold didn't come to again?
And this would have been the moment you dropped him off at the party.
Yeah, would have had to.
Rick, what do you think?
That sounds like a confession to me. I don't know. I hate that. I hate that she gave that statement. I hate that it's playing, and that's one of the reasons why you don't do that. I think it's terrible.
So this one's having an impact?
Yes.
Kirk?
Absolutely.
How big?
Yeah. This is the biggest difference between the first trial and the second trial. You have her up there on Dateline confessing at least to the operating under the influence count, possibly clipping him by accident, not knowing, etc. And this is where I think I would disagree with you, Vinny. I think the way these clips are being played, she's basically being baited to get on the stand. She really, her only hope at this point, making the foolish mistake of Dateline and all these other interviews, is to get on the stand and try to rectify that and try to convince the jury that she didn't do it.
Wow. I would not expect it, just knowing Alan Jackson being very conservative in his approach, but that would be something.
But
okay.
There she is on TV, Vinny. That's not conservative approach.
Well, yeah. They also have to raise money for the defense. Let's do this. Another clip. This is an audio clip that was played from an interview she did with someone named Gretchen Voss.
When my car was seized, there was a few small pieces of taillight missing that I had picked out at John's at 5:45 before we drove over to Fairview. I'm showing Jim and Carrie, look what I just did to my light, and I'm worried that there's gonna be some kind of electric short circuit. There's like the bulb is showing, and some of the red plastic's missing. So I picked pieces out of the light housing that had kind of collapsed within the light and dropped them in John's driveway.
And Paulette, the other part of these clips is that there's some pageantry associated with it. They draw the curtains close. They dim the lights. There's no introduction. It's just, here's clip 6. Boom, and they listen to it. How big of an impact?
The first interview gives me goosebumps. The fact that she said he did not look mortally wounded, I don't know how you come back from that. But I agree. I think she might have to take the stand here because they are obviously trying to use bits and pieces of things that she said and not playing the entire interview or every interview. So I think they may be baiting her to testify because I don't think she's going to have a lot of other explanations. You know, the attorneys can make an argument, but obviously they're going to be told, the jury's going to be told that that is only argument, not evidence. So I think she's going to have to testify to try to make sense of all of these little statements that she made and kind of clean it up and wrap it up with a pretty nice bow and present it to the jury.
Rick King, if she does testify, next time we do this segment, that is the biggest difference, right? I always look at it when the defendant takes the stand, like say they go up for a day or maybe like, I don't know, they're on the stand for a month. To me, it changes the complexion of, and I'm always looking at Kirk when I'm saying that, right? It changes the complexion of the trial.
It has to, doesn't it? When a defendant takes the stand, it automatically changes everything that has happened before, because you're getting that, hey, why did you do this? And you're getting those responses that only the defendant can give you. And so I think if she takes the stand, I don't think this is going to end well for her.
Kirk, Jennifer McCabe will be on the stand for parts of 3 days, right? That's Jennifer McCabe. If Karen Read takes the stand, how long do you think her testimony would be in a case like this?
You know, it's hard to say, because one of the things, you know, she's certainly going up against a person who's pretty much practiced at cross-examination because he's a defense attorney. The jury has the opportunity to ask questions. How much explaining she has to do to that jury. I mean, the jury questions alone and both sides follow up. Sometimes, you know, Vinnie, that can last a month, right? It's not just the direct examination. So when we get to that point, yeah, I mean, it could be a long, drawn-out process. The jury has more and more questions. This was an unforced error, a fumble of epic proportions.
We are out of time. Rick King, Paulette Lofton, Kirk Nurmi, thank you so much. We'll see you again really, really soon. When we come back, I'll reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, we take a look at the body language of Karen Read, Jennifer McCabe, and Kerry Roberts. Who is telling the truth and who is lying? We investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, coming up next, only on Court TV.
Is Karen Read a killer girlfriend?
She's guilty.
Or the scapegoat in an elaborate cover-up?
Karen Read was brave! We know who did it.
The Karen Read Murder Retrial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Welcome back. Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Luigi the Musical. I am not kidding. Luigi the Musical is slated to debut at the Taylor Theater in San Francisco, California on the 13th of June. They're calling it a bold, campy, and unafraid musical, taking on the life and times of Mangione, accused of murdering in cold blood United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. It's a story of love, murder, and hash browns. Here's a clip from rehearsal and behind the scenes from Luigi the Musical on Instagram. June 13th in San Francisco. All right, folks, take a look at your television screens. We have a missing child who needs your help. This is Nathan McCray. Nathan is missing from Perry, Georgia, just 17 years old. Missing since the 23rd of April. If you see Nathan, he may still be in Perry, may have traveled to Macon. Pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference, 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Perry Police Department in Georgia. That number's on your screen. Let's see if we can get Nathan to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.